investigated. They said he had a psychiatric evaluation. He spent a week or a day in a facility. He is now the accused mass murderer in this tragic event. In Parkland, Florida, according to news reports, the FBI failed to act on a tip about the shooter in that situation. Oxford, Michigan, more recently, school officials accused of ignoring warning signs about the accused shooter, Ethan Crumbley. One tweet today saying the words most often heard following a mass shooting: the suspect was previously known to law enforcement. I want to bring in Katherine Schweit now. She's a retired FBI special agent, host of the Stop the Killing podcast, and author of Stop the Killing: How to End the Mass Shooting Crisis. Thank you for being part of the program tonight. Let's just start with what we know about this latest attack and some of the red flags. Up to a year ago, state patrol or state troopers were called to this teen's high school because he had been making some threats that was seriously enough that something more, people wonder, should have been done. What more can you do when someone raises the level of the threat to the point where you've got everybody who needs to be involved, and then a year later, here we are?
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. And I appreciate you having me on tonight. That the point is that, I mean, it was a year ago. That was a year ago. There were a lot of signs in between, and a lot of opportunities to see him on this trajectory towards violence that may have been missed. And we'll find those things out. We definitely are finding some out. And in the case of the Buffalo shooting, the FBI has already said they had no knowledge of this guy. They said that at a press conference, they had nothing on the record. The state police, who you said were called to his home after he answered a question at school and said he was going to do murder-suicide, and they did an evaluation. That's a state policy that a lot of states have, where if there's a concern that somebody's going to harm themselves or another, then they will pick that person up on a mental health check. And, you know, the challenge that I've seen in these cases, this is probably no different, but the challenge that I've seen in these cases is that somebody meets with a mental health official. They say, "Oh, I was just kidding." I've read plenty of transcripts where the shooter says, "Well, I was just kidding." And they tell their parents, "Oh, there wasn't anything to it. I was just kidding." That's exactly what happened at Oxford High School up in Michigan, near my hometown, Detroit. And the shooters are in a situation where they're kind of in control by just saying words. And they say words, and there really isn't a mechanism that we have here in this country to further, investigate someone or to keep somebody on the radar that a year later or 2 years later or 3 years later might be doing something.
Well,
law enforcement challenges with this every day. I'm sorry, go ahead.
One thing, Katherine, is New York does have this red flag regulation,
Yes,
which lets law enforcement, school officials, parents, even families ask the court to then seize the guns from anyone who is considered dangerous. So a year ago, if he had been deemed dangerous, there could have been something done. So I guess the question is, do we need to work on coordination between different organizations when one of these red flags is raised? How you lay the groundwork that this person needs to be kept under a particular watch?
No, that's good that you mentioned that, because, a lot of states do have red flag laws. A lot of people are unfamiliar with them, and they're called extreme risk protection orders. And we casually call them red flag laws. Lots of states have adopted them in the last several years, just for what you're talking about, an opportunity that if somebody is under duress, and it doesn't have to be because they espouse a particular thing, or it could be just because we think they're going to get hurt.
We've gone back and forth about red flag laws for a long time, but at some level, I'm wondering, when you're dealing with somebody who's so mentally disturbed, as everywhere from this guy is to Adam Lanza to the movie theater shooter in Aurora, you go back in this timeline.
Oh, yeah.
Is there a common thread that evil is just evil? They're going to be radicalized or pushed to violence by something, and what it is kind of doesn't matter, so that for all the political discussion of his manifesto, it's more that you just had somebody who put in their high school yearbook murder-suicide, and that was the path he was on?
Yeah, I kind of absolutely agree with you that it doesn't matter whether it's politically motivated or it's this side or that side or money or whatever the issue is. I think that, I'm not a psychotherapist, but I don't think that they would say evil is evil is evil in every case. And so, there are people who just seem to be so susceptible, and we call them brittle people. I call them brittle people, and they are so susceptible to violence and they want to commit violence. And then there are people who have true mental health, deviant issues. They are psychopathic. And those people, absolutely. We've seen those kind of killers too.
Well, and what really is so difficult about it, Katherine, is that they seem to, it's a red flag, yes, but it's also a call for help. I mean, a year ago, he says murder-suicide. He's a 17-year-old. Somebody's got to intervene. Ethan Crumbley, the same thing in Oxford, Michigan, had these drawings. I mean, there are opportunities for those in authority to intervene, whether it's the parents, the school, law enforcement. You just hate to see it. Once again, we're here talking about it.
Katherine, I completely agree with you. That's who's dropping the ball, right? It's the people around them, because 30 to 40% of these people intend to commit suicide. And many do.
Katherine, thanks for being with us tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.